Agricultural Minister in John Steenhuisen is giving a media briefing where he says he's setting the record straight about misleading information. That's all we know. Let's find out more and listen in.
Through manufacturing outrage and sensationalism. I want to use the opportunity today to set the record straight and to refute Mr. Leroux's baseless sensationalism. Firstly, I wish to make it clear that the Department of Agriculture is not the custodian of BBBEE. A little bit of basic research by Sakelige and Leroux would have shown that the gazetting and promulgation of the architecture and regulatory framework was done by the Department of Trade and Industry. The codes of good practice were signed by the then Minister of Trade and Industry on the 8th of December 2017, a full 9 years before I became the Minister of Agriculture. I've only been the Minister of Agriculture for roughly 7 months. My department has not even had an opportunity to stand alone as a department on itself. That will occur in April when the department formally splits and becomes its own department in both name, budget and function, and when we separate from rural development and land reform. I find this attack by Mr. Leroux and Sakelige both puzzling and odd, given the fact that my department has not even had an opportunity to stand on its own 2 feet, and already he is launching a broadside. However, when one looks at on their website and looks at the link between this sensationalism that they're driving and the fundraising button, I think the motive becomes absolutely clear. Just like any other government department, provincial administration or local government administration, the Department of Agriculture is subject to the laws of the Republic, and legislative compliance is something that is specifically measured by the Auditor General and included in the annual reports when determining the audit outcomes for every department and public entity. Secondly, I want to turn to Mr. Leroux's and Sakelige's patently false allegation, accusing me, and again I quote, of establishing several transformation funds, unquote. Now, the evidence that they produce for this absurd claim is the fact that I've recently gazetted several statutory levies, which they attach in their press statement. This is a statutory requirement for every Minister of Agriculture and has been since 1996. Leroux and Sakelige conveniently and purposefully leave out the fact that these levies are not determined by the Minister, but are instead voluntary levies initiated by the commodity groups themselves. These are then forwarded to the National Agricultural Marketing Council, who are here with me today, to investigate on the efficacy and effectiveness of them, and then to initiate a report to the Minister for gazetting. Apart from the fact that the Act and the measures were implemented almost a decade before I became Minister, it is also important to underscore that the application for statutory measures by commodity organisations is a voluntary process. It is not something imposed by a ministerial diktat, as Leroux intends to apply. It is something that the industry itself chooses. It's also worth mentioning from their press statement that Mr. Leroux is under the impression that the Department of Agriculture issues what he calls water rights, and that I am somehow now seeking to racialize these. This is again yet another false claim by them. Water rights and water licensing done by the Department of Water and Sanitation through a process that does not involve the Minister of Agriculture. Leroux then proceeds to paint this entirely false narrative that as Minister I've now created these massive funds, transformation funds he calls them, and that I direct and determine how they are spent. Again, this is patently false. Basic research would have shown very clearly to Mr. Leroux that the statutory levy is paid over to the commodity groups. It is these independent commodity organisations, not government, not the Minister, who decide upon the use of them. I have no role whatsoever in the utilisation of these funds, the selection of beneficiaries, or directing which projects or individuals must be chosen for assistance. Where do these levies come from? I think it's very worthwhile to set out the context of these levies in order to place them in the proper understanding. Since 1997 and the collapse of the apartheid-era control boards and the ending of the support and protectionism they provided in a pre-democratic society, the agricultural sector has organized itself into commodity groups. This is in line with the Marketing of Agricultural Products Act passed in 1996. This sought to replace the old era of protectionism, dumping, and directive with a system of more commodity-directed activity and the system of collecting levies, statutory levies, for each of the commodity associations. This system provides for a commodity association to request the minister to allow for the collection of a statutory levy on an agricultural product. This levy is then paid over to the commodity association. The levy is used to finance a range of activities, including, but not limited to, marketing, marketing development, overseas market development, local market development, scientific research, consumer education, and, yes, promoting the empowerment of previously excluded participants. But a bit more about that later. The National Agricultural Marketing Council is established in terms of the Marketing of Agricultural Products Act to ensure that the levies are in line with the provisions of the Act and to assist in increasing market access for all market participants, promoting the efficiency of the marketing of agricultural products, optimizing the exports earnings from agricultural products, and enhancing the viability of the entire agricultural sector. This instrument of statutory levies has become a vital source of funding and advancement for the agricultural commodity bodies and provide benefits for every single player in each of the commodity bodies, regardless of their race or their gender. The entire commodity value chain and everybody in it reaps the massive benefits from the use of the levies in promoting, developing, and advancing each of the individual commodities. Why is this empowerment necessary? Mr. Leroux and his organization are always extremely quick to cite the Constitution to underpin and justify their various campaigns. You cannot, however, cherry-pick the parts of the Constitution that suit you and those you wish to uphold, and ignore the parts that you wish to conveniently ignore. Apart from its injunction to promote social justice in its very preamble, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa sets out very clearly in Chapter 2, Section 9.2 of the Bill of Rights the following, and I quote, "Equality includes the full and equal employment of all rights and freedoms to promote the achievement of equality, legislative and other measures designed to protect or advance persons or categories of persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination may be taken," unquote. Now, there can be no rational or sane person who looks at the Gini coefficient of 0.63 in South Africa and cannot discern that there exists a huge inequality problem in our country. Due to the legacy of apartheid, a history of legislative and discrimination, as well as policy and governance failures, particularly during the 9 wasted years of elite enrichment, corruption, cronyism, and state capture, South Africa remains an economically unjust society. Most importantly, our economy is not growing fast enough. Now, the agricultural sector is not immune to this. Another fact clearly lost on Leroux and Sakelige. The scale of our challenge, however, is set out in the book by renowned agricultural economist Wandile Sihlobo, entitled A Country of Two Agricultures. It sets out very clearly that despite 3 decades of political freedom, this has still not resulted in the adequate improvement in the socio-economic prospects of the majority of South Africans, particularly in the agricultural sector. So Schlober concludes that the share of previously disadvantaged farmers who were subject to legislative dispossession and exclusion, who participate in agricultural output, hovers at a paltry 10%. This is evident from the table which he recently released, which sets out very clearly the share of black farmers in commercial agricultural output. This is an average from 2015 to 2020. In the commodity of maize, the participation share of black farmers is 4.7%. Soybeans, 3.1%. Wheat, 1.3%. Cotton, 2.4%. Citrus, 12.8%. Deciduous fruit, 10.2%. Viticulture, 1.6%. Potato, 1%. Tomatoes, 8.6%. Wool, 11%. Mohair, 12.8%. Cattle, 34%. And poultry, 4.2%. An economically just society is one in which economic opportunities are made available to all, and people have the capability to be able to make use of those opportunities. If we wish to deal with the inequality problem that we have in South Africa, and to create an inclusive and non-racial society, we must address inequalities of opportunity. I want to make this clear. I'm not interested in the engineering of equalities of outcomes through race or other quotas. What I'm interested in is promoting an equality of opportunity that will genuinely assist disadvantaged people and give them a fair shot at accessing markets. In other words, instead of focusing on picking winners and losers in a race, the solution lies in ensuring that every South African, regardless of their skin color, their gender, or their past, is brought to the same fair starting point. You cannot say you've had a fair Comrades Marathon if some of the runners start in Durban, but others start in Hillcrest, and then say at the end of that, you've had a fair race. This approach will ensure, by making sure everyone has the same starting point, ensure that every participant can then compete fairly, according to their own talent and ability, so that a fair race can occur. Creating an equality of opportunity is far more effective than trying to manufacture an equality of outcome. The levy system is therefore a perfect example about how we can create an equality of opportunity in the agricultural space. And this is essential if we're to work together to ensure that we overcome our past and own our future by moving towards a situation where all our farmers, all of them, are able to compete on a fair basis from the same starting point. This approach by the commodity bodies to genuine empowerment by upskilling, training, inclusion, and resourcing of those previously excluded is a far more effective empowerment model for the following reasons. Firstly, it is industry-led, industry-directed, and industry operationalized. This avoids any political interference or cronyism. Secondly, it facilitates and allows for a real skills transfer, knowledge, and genuine empowerment. Thirdly, it is in line with a whole-of-society approach to our socio-economic challenges that we face in our country. Fourthly, it does not take away from any participant at the expense of another, but focuses instead on addition, growth, and capacity building. It moves beyond an elite transfer model or a trickle-down and focuses instead on genuine farmer-level empowerment and skilling. Sixth, every producer contributes to this levy regardless of their race. Applications for any statutory levy, as I've said already, is done on a voluntary basis by the commodity organisation themselves. This is a bottom-up approach. It is not a top-down. And finally, the more small farmers that are empowered and able to participate in the value chain and access the market, means the more farmers we will have contributing to the same levies, thereby growing the contributions for the benefit of all in the commodity value chain. Now, I'm not sure how Mr. Leroux and Sakaliga intend to deal with inequality and how we ensure fairness in the agricultural space. I'm yet to see a single contribution from them in this regard that goes beyond slavish and misinformed criticism. However, I want to be very, very clear. I will continue to work with commodity bodies and organised agricultural associations, and that's all of them, including SAI, Agri-SA, AFASA, and many of the organised agriculture bodies, in order to create a greater equality of opportunity in the agricultural space. This is because I believe passionately in growing the sector using genuine bottom-up empowerment models and equipping previously excluded sectors of society and giving them the power to be able to participate fairly in markets. And then, of course, it's up to the market to pick the winners and losers. That is how you build, I quote, a flourishing, value-based agribusiness, unquote. Not by pretending and acting, like Mr. Leroux clearly does, that inequality and fairness simply do not exist in our country. I believe passionately that genuinely empowering small-scale farmers at the farm gate level will unleash a jobs and growth revolution in the agricultural sector that will ensure that we grow the sector for everybody's benefit. The more farmers we have with the knowledge and ability to farm, the better the production will be. This not only enhances food security, but will also make sure that we're able to have volumes to satisfy our export requirements. I want to say to the NAMC, and through them to all of our commodity associations, that I am very, very proud of them and their commitment to creating an equality of opportunity. And I'm proud of how they themselves have used portions of the levy income in the development of interventions that focus on genuine farmer-level empowerment and development. The vast proportion of the levies are used towards marketing, product development, scientific research, and industry development from which everybody in the commodity value chain benefits, regardless of their race or gender. Just a few examples of the use of the empowerment component of the levy, and these are very small examples, and I'm sure Angela and others would be able to provide you with a comprehensive list of all of the interventions. Macadamia South Africa provide technical support, inputs, equipment, and infrastructure. This includes trees, chemicals, fertilizers, and teachings on chemical storage. They assist small-scale farmers to obtain their Global GAP accreditation. All interventions by Macadamia South Africa are done on a 70-30 matching fund model to ensure that the farmers that they assist are invested and accountable for the resources. Milk South Africa has used their portion of the levy for assistance in electrifying dairy farms and improving production, assistance in fencing and milk storage facilities, and contracting independent livestock brokers and consultants to conduct workshops for small-scale farmers and farm workers in the dairy sector. Hortgrow adopts an approach of tailoring support based on the individual needs of each of the small-scale farmers. They blend levy income with the Jobs Fund and commercial financial institutions, and they provide specialized extension services to farmers. The Potato Industry Development Trust is doing enterprise development for small-scale farmers through their Small Growers Project. Cotton South Africa are doing incredible work in terms of enterprise development for small-scale farmers, skills development and knowledge transfer opportunities. They've established a new gin for improved access to the processing of cotton for small-scale farmers so they can have a bit value add on their product. There's a national initiative to improve access to gins for small-scale farmers. There's mechanization assistance to help improve yields and quality. Cotton South Africa partners with FarmSol, Senves, and Agriqua to assist with technical assistance for their farmers. They also fund 6 honours, 12 MSc, and 3 PhD students. The Oil and Protein Seeds Development Trust provides training, mentoring, information provision technology transfer, enterprise development, and advanced farmer support. They also fund bursary schemes for 10 masters and PhDs annually. The National Lucerne Trust does enterprise development for small farmers and agripreneurs. They have a bursary scheme that is used and partnered with the UFS, and they run a Lucerne hay grading course for small-scale farmers. The South African Pork Producers Association assists 78 farms with veterinary assistance and mentorship. They assist 5 farms with accounting services. They run enterprise development for piggery management, carcass quality evaluation, and they provide mentorship and skills transfer for commercialization and sustainability. The Wool Trust does infrastructure development for rural communal farmers through the development of shearing sheds. They provide shearer and farm worker training. They provide enterprise development, teaching skills such as classification of wool, packaging and prevention of pests for formal market access, wool classing courses, breeding techniques, and pasture health. The red meat industry provides bursaries based on fields that support their sector. The Citrus Growers Association, apart from having their own academy, focuses on the development of through the Grower Development Company that focuses on access to value chains for smaller farmers, supporting emerging growers with integrated pest management, trees, packing materials, and training and compliance for access to markets. Raisin South Africa does enterprise development by focusing on helping small farmers build sustainable development models. They provide training and bursaries. The development of a guidance officer program is initiated to develop the transfer of technical skills. The South African table grape industry runs a vineyard development program to help small-scale farmers improve their quality and their yield. They use their levies for help desks and advisory services and compliance, marketing and management. They provide bursaries. There's a modular course that they sponsor through Stellenbosch University in table and raisin grape production, and they run farm worker development programs. The South African Pecan Producers Association do enterprise development, assisting the development of new orchards. They provide bursaries. They provide skills development programs for farmers and farm workers, and they provide the provision of pecan trees to schools. Why I've gone through this list is because it is incredible to see the work that has been done and to demonstrate that it is these bottom-up initiatives by industry bodies, rather than top-down quotas enforced centrally, that shows the way towards genuine empowerment that does not exclude anybody, but grows the economy. Again, I'm exceptionally proud of the work being done by each and every industry body, commodity association, farmers' organization, and value chain to foster a spirit.
All right, live visuals there coming to us from Parliament in Cape Town. John Steenhuisen clearing the air, it seems, about certain accusations, we're told, that come from an organization called Sakaliga and its CEO, Piet Leroux. In fact, in a stroke of irony, I think it is this very media briefing that's brought attention to the story. And in case you missed it, the context here is that Sakaliga has accused John Steenhuisen of essentially rubber stamping certain race-based regulations in the agricultural sector and essentially pushing an agenda. That is the long and the short of it. John Steenhuisen, of course, pushing back very strongly against the perception of his involvement. But taking it a step further, he seems to have now come out to bat for some of the regulations that seem to level the playing field, so to speak. You know, in a country like ours, we typically speak of BEE, and in his sector, it's agri-BEE. And in fact, News 24 has put out an article where they speak about how he gazetted, or at least how the department recently gazetted regulations to this effect. He, in this media briefing, says they want to address an equality of opportunity and not an equality of outcome. You make of that what you will. He also says that whilst they're not interested in social engineering, they do believe there should be a fair race, leveling the playing field, so to speak. Yes, he's speaking there in his capacity as the agricultural minister, but of course, we know that in different spaces he wears a different political hat as the leader of the DA, and I wonder how these kind of sentiments might land with some of these constituencies, given, of course, what people might read into what he is saying. We'll continue to distill some of the details of that media briefing, but I suppose the long and the short of it is that he was trying to clear the air around accusations made against him and I guess by extension the department from an organization called Sakaliga.